But when you live in a society that is embedded in the Christian mindset, it don't allow for any other thinking to come across. You see, all of the other thinkings them is stupid and irrelevant. So we hear teachers now who's teaching comparative religion in a school kind of want to tell the student them say Hinduism and Buddhism and all this foolishness according to them.
Blessed love, my viewers and subscribers who are going, open all doing good, open all doing great. Now my people, we're there again on the Soul Chat TV with another Mutabaruka content, and this one, my people, is very, very intriguing. Mutabaruka share his side of belief. A lot of people confuse of the Bible and how it actually works, and Mutabaruka has a whole different story to that, because it seems as if a whole lot of people don't understand nothing in the Bible. And when I said a lot of people, I include the preachers and all those high top ranking church personnels. So my people, this one is going to definitely open your imagination to a whole different dimension and a whole perspective of everything pertaining to religion and the Bible in general. Very educational, so you definitely will learn something in this one. And for all who don't know what Mutabaruka actually believe in, now this video will prove that Mutabaruka is indeed a believer, but you need to watch to hear Mutabaruka say it himself. So people, let's go straight into the video and check out what Mutabaruka has to say pertaining to religion and his belief. But before we get into it, you know it's a Black Power movement, so definitely drop a like and subscribe and share to a friend or a family so they can be a part of the movement. Now my people, let's take a walk.
You know, years ago, we present a CD. Well, it really was a cassette. Nowadays, a CD about, don't know much about the Bible. And we played it was about it's supposed to be 4 parts, but we played 2 parts of it. Years ago, some 5-6 years ago, we played 2 parts of it. But we never played the last part of it. But we're going to play the last part of this thing here tonight, because we feel it's very relevant to this month here and to a certain mindset we follow this month. And knowing that we come from a Christian society and none of us can escape the influence that this Christian society have on our psyche and how we see things, even though a lot of us break away from it, but we still find ourselves engulfed in a certain thinking because of how we grew up. You know, in a Christian, well, Judaism don't really have it. Islam don't have it neither. There's this wrong opposite to God that is introduced in the Bible, really. Because the first time you hear about it was in Job. For those of us who read Bible, there was no devil until Job. It introduced in Job. The devil confronting Job. And after Job, the New Testament now is a battle between God and the devil. So what we find now is that even though Christianity, or they would say God allow Christians to live, but the Christians allow the devil to live. Because it is through this doctrine of Christianity why the devil is so prominent in our life. When Christianity introduced the opposite of God, because we must remember that in a Judaism, when something happened to Israel, them never blame it on the devil. Them just say something them do. Why God have punished them. So God punish you and certain things happen to you. There's a judgment that takes place against you by God. The Christians introduce an opposite to God named the devil. So there's this continuous fight between the devil and God for power. So I would really declare that it's really Christianity allow the devil to maintain itself, even though other people might say the devil did exist before any Christians. Well, the devil never exists in the Old Testament until Job. It come about in Job, and they don't even know who write Job. But Job is really a very important story. Very important story to the whole idea of the strength of man and the perseverance of man still. But we see this new entity arrive in our psyche, and it has perpetuated itself in our psyche for 2,000 years. There's this devil that is fairly prevalent in our thinking and on our thoughts, that we even create ideas and concepts of the devil. But the reason why we are saying that is for really go down into the idea of this month, December. Why was December chosen to be the birthday? That specific day was chosen to be the birthday of Jesus Christ. We say it many times over and over and over, and we can't say it too much. We can't repeat the same thing too much because we have to keep repeating these things, you know. There's a reason why it was chosen. Now, most Christians and most, I would say no, without any apology, most nowadays preacher who has never really studied theology, but claim that them get this Holy Spirit that is moving them. You know, people say the Holy Spirit move you to say things and to do things, when it's really them after them own misunderstanding a guide themselves and claim some supernatural divinity that is directing the course of them thinking. But when we look at most of the preachers them today who preach to the people, I will realize a lot of them don't understand why was certain things chosen to be how it is. Because maybe if we had known why certain things was chosen to be what it is, we would have moved a certain way and would be thinking a different way and have a different perception and perspective about ourselves. And it's not too late, you know, we can't say why it's too late now, but it's not too late, you know, it's just whosoever is open enough to receive will really appreciate the information. Because when I tell one if we just take information and sup it so like it's true, I say evaluate the situation, the information, and look and see if what is said make any sense. And if you don't even understand what is said, maybe you should go ask somebody who you feel. Because we see them at theological seminary there. They invite you to the theological seminary a couple times, about 2 times back, and we listen and we hear the people them who is studying to be theologians, who eventually become preachers of divinity in Christianity. And we realize that even though them in the theological college, them don't want to open their mind to different perspective and understanding of different religions. Because theology don't mean Christianity. Theology is the study of the idea and concept of God, no matter what religion it is. Because theo is Greek. It's Greek. Theo, God. You see, so it's really like the study of God in different facets of understanding. But when you live in a society that is embedded in the Christian mindset, it don't allow for any other thinking to come across. You see, all of the other thinkings them is stupid and irrelevant. So we hear teachers now who is teaching comparative religion in a school kind of want to tell the student them say Hinduism and Buddhism and all this foolishness, according to them. It's just some little foolish stories. What we must really center our mind on is Jesus Christ. So there's no scope and no opening for the student to understand different perspective or how different people see things outside of their environment. Well, over the years, cutting edge, people cuss way and people say, well, right now we come down to hard pan Christian them and thing. And I want to tell you, say, I hear Mr. Boy and I come down hard pan the Christian them too. I hear Mr. Boy that does some internal sweeping. Yes, Mr. Boy, I will love you now, you know. Mr. Boy that does some internal sweeping and sweep out himself totally, you know, we can't even say. The Christian them, more time, them not think. Them have emotions, but them not really think. Them not reason. See, most of the things that with them is just emotion them use to reach a certain idea and understanding instead of reasoning. Because it come like so when a man become Christian, him stop reasoning. Him not reason out things, him not rationalize, and him leave everything to God then, and not knowing say, boy, but the idea of God is inside of him, and the whole purpose of finding God is to find yourself.
Find yourself.
Not blindly finding yourself, because people don't look for themselves blindly. They say you have to have eye, you have to have a mirror too, you know, to find yourself. So when we hear all young boy and a lick out and I say, well, right now, him find say most of the Christian them in Jamaica, them not really have no rational intellect to really reason and come to a total understanding of what them believe in. So most of the times now you hear say we is the devil, because we come on the radio without anything in our mouth and we just talk exactly how we see it and how we view it. And people feel say, well, right now we are some atheists, we are some this and we are some that. And we tell them all the while, say it's not that we don't believe in a God, it's just that we don't believe in the idea and the concept that was taught to us through the Christian faith. You see, the idea that them have about Yahweh and Elohim and Adonai and everything, we don't really accept them concept there. Them concept there come through some irrational and sometimes illogical understanding of self that man should really give over. Like Santa Claus, when a woman, as we said last week, a woman spend 360 days at work to give her child a present. And instead that she tell the child that it's fair, she work hard and get the child a present. She put it in her socks and hang it on a tree and give it over to a big belly man named Santa Claus.
Crazy.
So this lie perpetuates itself in our youth. Where you don't tell the youth, you don't tell a lie, you know. But the biggest lie is that Santa Claus come and give the little youth a present. So the youth become loving of this big belly man, where every Christmas now you see them put him in a big chair, red and white, going with that. And now you see even black people are dressed up that way there. You see, last week we talked to a brethren about the White Christmas, the song White Christmas, and him couldn't even comprehend the psychology of White Christmas and how White Christmas maintain itself in the idea that white is beautiful, white is pretty and all these things. Him couldn't comprehend that. You see, him keep rationalize that the song don't make no mark difference in no one's living and how them live. But it's a collectiveness we are dealing with, and the perpetuation of a certain ideology. And it linked the ideology of I'm dreaming of a white Christmas with Santa Claus. All of these things linked together. You know, see, we're not using it as just one facet or one aspect of the thing. It's a totality, a sum total of a mindset that has been perpetuated on us for years through a European philosophy and ideology that it's very difficult for us to come out of it. Very difficult to come out of it. And a lot of these ideas is maintained through grandmothers and great-grandmothers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers who declare these days now as very corrupt days, when it is because of those teaching perpetuating itself and what we call genetic memory, where the child becomes a person even in the womb of the mother. Even in the womb of the mother, the child is a person. So the child is feeding from the mother. The psychology, as we said last week, one of the ways them pacify the male resistance is to tie the father to what them call it. Yeah, tie up the father between two arms and make the mother, the pregnant woman, watch this cruel, inhuman action where they would put black people, black man, after whipping them 100 lashes, would have sprinkled salt in the wound them and make cat run over them back. This is documented. This is how my Mutabaruka say. Documented. And make the pregnant woman watch. And this develop a certain psychology in the woman where if when our child born, in order not to make our child go through that kind of torture, she teach the child not to fight. She teach the child not to be what you call a revolutionary. So it pacifies the youth. So we can say, oh, the fear is a love fear, you know. The love for the child, but the fear grip the mother so much that the mother don't really want her child to come out to fight against a system that is a cruel and unjust system. So when you start to wake up to this reality now, you become a rebel without a cause because you are now rebelling against something and don't know why you're rebelling against it in a very unstructured way. You find a whole heap of people are rebel in a very unstructured way. You understand? So, why we are saying all of that is to come to the whole idea that it is very important that when we play certain things on the radio, and we don't want a man just look and say Muta is a Rasta. So him not listen. We are saying Muta is a person who will give information. And it depends on what you want to do with the information now. Because I don't listen and I gather and I throw away. Where I don't want, I throw away. Where I want, I hold in my consciousness. So I am just passing this information to you now, and you must know what you want to do with the information. And we are saying, don't bother feel like say boy right now, you can't listen because you're done seeping at your thinking already. Because, look here man, it's a long road man. Nobody can reach to the top of the mountain. Sometimes the mountain have to come to Muhammad still. And we are saying, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And that is what we're here to do. So as we are saying now that we're going to turn the cutting edge into a theological college for the next 3 weeks. I hope so you have your tape and cock because this is the cutting edge and I recommend. Okay. As we are saying now, this is part of the program where we want to listen to keenly. Don't know much about the Bible. Most Jamaican people have a Bible in their mouth, but most Jamaican people don't read it. But them can tell you everything when I and misquote everything in it. So when you come as a person who read it and talk to them say, where you get them foolishness from? I have spoken to Christians, hardcore Christians who go to church every Sunday already. And I tell them some things in the Bible, and them I say, me can go out with my Rasta talk. Because them things are not in the Bible. And me I say, but all the claim the Bible as a book of books, and me I tell them about something in there and I don't know where in there. Most Jamaican people make the pass and tell you where in it and interpret it for you, but yet still don't grasp a full understanding of what it is. So tonight is don't know much about the Bible. Do you really know much about what you read in the Bible? And we're going to start it from the New Testament. Yeah, we're going to start the lecture from the New Testament because there's enough people think them know where in there but don't know where in there.
Although much shorter than the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament still has its own complex history. Many of the books began in the oral tradition, and because many early Christians expected the second coming of Christ to happen any day, there seemed to be little need for a written version of the good news. Eventually, as the first generation of apostles who were spreading the good news started to die off, either from old age or as the result of persecutions by the Romans, it seemed like a good idea to set these words down. The letters of Paul were the first to be collected around 90 CE, and sometime after 100 CE, there was a collection of the four Gospels. There are no originals of these writings. As the early Christian church grew, the Gospels and letters were widely copied to be spread from one Christian community to the next in a day when there was no Kinko's or corner copy shop. Thousands of hand-copied versions of fairly early New Testament documents exist, and they aren't always in agreement. The concept of a New Testament, an assemblage of holy writings that added to or even replaced accepted Hebrew writings, emerged in the 2nd century CE. As with the Hebrew scriptures, there are human fingerprints all over the decision-making that led to the compilation of the New Testament. Most biblical researchers presume that other early Christian writings existed, including other letters by Paul, but they were lost or even discarded. Modern scholars also suspect that the New Testament authors had access to a collection of Jesus' sayings, a kind of 1st century Bartlett's familiar quotations, or quotations from Chairman Jesus, called Q. From the German word Quelle, for source, this Q document exists only in theory.
If there are only 4 Gospels, then what are the Gnostic Gospels?
In a story combining a little murder mystery with some Indiana Jones intrigue, an Egyptian peasant made an extraordinary find of 13 leather-bound books in 1945. As recounted by Elaine Pagels in her prize-winning book, The Gnostic Gospels, a farmer digging near the town of Nag Hammadi, located on the Nile north of Luxor, uncovered these papyrus books in a buried earthen jar. He took them home, where his mother accidentally burned some of the papyrus as kindling. A few weeks later, this man and his brother killed another local man in a blood feud over the death of their father. Fearing that police investigating the murder would discover the books, the farmer turned his find over to a local priest. Learning of the books, a school teacher sent one to Cairo to check its value on the black market for antiquities. The Egyptian government got wind of the books and confiscated 10 and a half of the 13 books, and they were placed in a Cairo museum. But part of another book was smuggled out of Egypt and offered for sale in America. A Dutch historian and linguist heard of the books and purchased the smuggled text. Discovering that parts were missing, he flew to Cairo in 1955, where he was able to see photographic reproductions of the other books. He began to decipher them. The first words he made out were nothing short of revolutionary. These are the secret words which the living Jesus spoke, and which the twin Judas Thomas wrote down. The words came from the Gospel according to Thomas. Although other early Christian writings were known to have existed, and scraps of a mysterious Gospel according to Thomas had been found previously, the entire text had never been seen. This new Gospel was the first of 55 texts discovered at Nag Hammadi. These were the so-called Gnostic Gospels, a secret set of early Christian writings. Written in Coptic, a North African dialect used exclusively by an Egyptian Christian sect, they proved to be 1,500-year-old translations of older Greek writings. Some of the books contained familiar sayings from the New Testament, but other teachings and statements attributed to Jesus were unique and extraordinary, potentially shaking the foundations of Christianity with the questions they raised. In one text, the Gospel of Philip, Jesus is depicted kissing Mary Magdalene, one of his female followers. It is not a brotherly peck on the cheek, either. Gnostics, an early Christian sect whose name comes from the Greek gnosis, usually translated as knowledge, is a term used loosely to identify groups of early Christians who held beliefs very different from conventional Christianity. Just as modern Christianity is split among many contending sects with differing ideas about Jesus, the early church was deeply divided. Gnostics believed, for instance, that Jesus' rising from the dead was spiritual rather than an actual physical event. They also believed in a spiritual search for inner truth that had more in common with Eastern views like Buddhism than with Orthodox Christianity. The Gnostic Gospels had been denounced as heresy by early Christian leaders who were no longer persecuted victims. They had become the authorities. To challenge them was to risk excommunication, arrest, or worse, for heresy. About 500 years after Jesus lived, someone took a set of these banned texts and buried them in the Egyptian desert, either out of self-preservation or for posterity. While the Nag Hammadi discoveries have opened up a great many questions, they also make one thing clear. The earliest Christians did not agree on what we call the New Testament, and they may have had more of Jesus' life and words to read and study than the stories and teachings familiar to most contemporary Christians. 35 years after the death of John F. Kennedy, the American president's life and death continue to fascinate the public and provide an endless source of material for biographers, historians, novelists, conspiracy theorists, and revisionist filmmakers. All make claims about the real Kennedy, who he was, what he said, and what he might have been thinking. The flood of conjecture and outright fiction continued to pour out, despite the fact that there are newspaper accounts, film and television footage, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people still alive who knew John F. Kennedy and worked with him on a daily basis. In spite of all that evidence, most people still don't know the truth about the real JFK. How then can anyone possibly get a true picture of the historical Jesus, a man who left no writings or Oval Office tape recordings? We're not even sure if the people who said they knew him really knew him, or where they got their stories if they didn't. Nevertheless, since the 19th century, and especially in recent years, it has become popular to distinguish between the Jesus of faith, as presented in the New Testament, and the historical Jesus. Just as the Hebrew Scriptures contain multiple stories of everything from the creation to King David and the destruction and rebuilding of Jerusalem's temple, there are conflicting accounts of Jesus in the New Testament. The next part of this program aims to depict the life of Jesus as it is presented in the accounts of the four Gospels, complete with contradictions.
Was Jesus born on Christmas?
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. On December 5 and 20, fum fum fum, in the bleak midwinter. Throw these and most other wintry Christmas carols out the window. Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. December 25th is basically a date chosen to win over pagan sun worshippers. The elaborate stories and songs woven around Christmas are all part of a complex set of myths and traditions that has little to do with the biblical account of Jesus' birth. The English word Christmas literally means Christ's Mass, the festival of the Christ's birth. The earliest mention of December 25th as the feast day of the Nativity, the proper name for the birthday of Jesus, dates to 354 CE. In ancient times, December 25th was the date of the winter solstice, a pagan holiday celebrating the sun god. In Rome, the week preceding the solstice was the Saturnalia, an orgiastic festival that concluded with gift-giving and candle lighting. Doesn't that sound like a familiar holiday? Early Roman Christians appropriated the date and then used it to win converts from paganism, a term for the Roman Empire's state religion, complete with its set of gods and goddesses who had been expropriated from Greek mythology. The word pagan was coined by early Christians, loosely meaning civilian. In other words, anyone who hadn't enlisted in Jesus' army was a pagan. Early Christians did not think Jews were pagan, however, because they still worshipped the same God. Christians then, as now, agreed on few things. Following the division of the Roman Empire into eastern and western halves in 340 CE, Christianity was also largely split between East and West. Eastern Christians used a calendar in which the solstice fell on January 6th, when the birthday of Osiris was still celebrated at Alexandria, Egypt. By about 300 CE, January 6th had become the date of the Epiphany, Greek for manifestation, a feast closely related to Christmas in the Roman Catholic calendar as the day on which the wise men, or magi, visited Jesus. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, Epiphany is even more popular than Christmas and commemorates the baptism of Jesus in the Jordan River. Okay, so Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. At least the New Testament tells us what year Jesus was born, right? Sorry again. The New Testament actually offers several possible birth years. Pick the one you like. Matthew has Jesus born between 7 and 4 BCE. Luke has him born before 4 BCE, while Herod the Great is alive, and then in 6 CE, 10 years after Herod the Great died. These two Gospels disagree by about 10 to 12 years. The date is wrong, and the year is a mystery. In other words, the birthday of the Son of God is a movable feast. If this is divinely inspired, couldn't God get that year right?
Oh, little town of Bethlehem?
Okay, the day and the year were fudged a bit, but surely we know Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Oh dear. The place of Jesus' birth also raises some problems. If we had only Mark and John to go on, we would assume it was Nazareth because they call Nazareth his hometown, as Jesus himself does. But Luke and Matthew both set the story of Jesus' birth in Bethlehem. The exact place of the birth of the revered Jesus within Bethlehem is also unknown. Luke's manger may have been a stall with almost no covering, or even a feeding trough in the open. The inn was most likely a yard with partial shelter on 3 sides. Based on current archaeological and other clues, Bethlehem lacked a Holiday Inn 2,000 years ago. So why put Jesus in Bethlehem, a small obscure village? Because to the Jewish people, Bethlehem was not obscure at all. First mentioned in Judges, it took added significance from Ruth, whose heroine went to Bethlehem, married there, and became the ancestor of the future King David. As the birthplace of Israel's greatest king, Bethlehem became an even more significant national landmark. Then the prophet Micah prophesied that a shepherd king, a Messiah to lead Israel, would come from Bethlehem. There are only 2 possibilities here. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, even though Jesus later says he is from Nazareth, and there is no valid historical reason for his parents to be in Bethlehem, or he wasn't. And the writers of Matthew and Luke placed his birth there to conveniently fulfill the well-known prophecy of a Messiah born in Bethlehem out of the house of David. In other words, did the gospel writers, working about a half-century after Jesus died, cut the foot to fit the shoe?
Well, my people, we have made it to the end. This documentary here is kind of longer, but we're gonna cut it short for this one. Let me know if you want to hear the full documentary, so we can have it. It's about an hour or an hour and a half. Yeah, man, really long. So we're gonna just cut this short here because we get the important part where Mutabaruka is giving his point of view on the whole Bible situation and how the teachers are teaching the youths to not think for themselves and just think just a religious and a Christian way. So my people, definitely leave your thoughts and opinion down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this, and it's a Black Power movement, so definitely drop a like and subscribe and share to a friend or a family so they can be a part of the movement. Now my people, I'll catch you in the next one. Irie.